Tell us about your role now at Google. What do you look after? You have a really interesting role and do a lot of cool stuff.
I do. I'm the managing director for publisher platforms. So basically what that means is that I run the Google SSP.
Translate.
I do want to give some color on that, though. Yeah. So I've been at Google for 3 years. Prior to that, I spent 2 decades, which some of you can relate to, in the digital ecosystem. So I've been a publisher, and I've worked at the agency as well.
Wow.
So it's impressive to see how both sides have evolved over time. So Google SSP is what most of you in the audience would know as AdX.
Right.
Yeah.
So very quickly, just tell us, what does that really mean practically for the buyers and sellers out there? You're facilitating very interesting transactions, obviously, in the advertising space.
Yeah. We like to say we fund the world's information.
Right.
So basically what we do, we get demand from the buyers, either via a DSP or even through our brand new agency sales team.
Right.
And we bring that information, that demand to the publishers across every single type of platform. So whether it's CTV, whether it's apps, whether it's in-stream video, it doesn't matter. So we bring all that information, advertising
cool.
to the sell side.
So our hypothesis to this fireside is
yes.
that the buying and selling of media is being transformed. Why? What's happening?
Okay, so John, what we are seeing is that buyers are trying to move as close as possible to the inventory source. So if you take a look at the title of this session, it's really all about the source and the inventory source, where it's coming from. And the biggest trend that we're seeing is that the buyers are trying to get as close as possible to that inventory source. So that's the biggest trend, and it's also driving different types of behavior. So for example, some of the behaviors that we're seeing is that because of that trend, the buyers are building deeper and deeper relationships with SSPs. But at the same time, the SSPs are actually creating products, technology, not only to benefit the inventory source or the publishers, but also to benefit the agencies. So that need to get closer to that inventory source is allowing SSPs to create new technology to bring the two sides together.
Give us an example of one of those kind of technical innovations. How is it bringing buyers and sellers more closely together?
Yeah. One of the ones that's, everyone's been speaking about is curation, for example. So the concept of curation is not new. So within the DSP, there's always data layers. So the new technology that you see everyone shifting over, and Google just rolled out an amazing curation platform called Ad Manager Curation. Okay, we weren't too creative with the name. And basically what we do is actually build that data layer closer to the SSP side of the business. So when brands are looking to get to that inventory source, they're using curation to get closer to that data layer.
And just unpack that a little bit, because it's fascinating to hear you describe it. For buyers, what does that really mean? If I'm a major agency group or an advertiser buying on the platform, you've obviously got an extraordinary range of inventory suppliers. What does the curation element really add? What does it do to make my life as a buyer easier?
So curation holistically allows you to target the right audience. Right? At the end of the day, if you're a brand and you're trying to reach trying to get your information, your brand media out there on an inventory source, you actually want to make sure you're in front of the right audience. So if you're trying to reach moms or you're trying to reach a particular audience, you want to make sure it's landing on the right publisher page. And by the way, when I say publisher page, I don't mean just traditional publisher, whether it's in-stream or out-of-stream, or even audio, regardless of format. What curation done, again, the concept isn't new, but where it resides has changed. So traditionally, the data layer resided within the DSP. Okay, so with what I mentioned before, with brands trying to get closer to the inventory source, that data now resides within the SSP. So if you're trying to reach an audience, what curation does, it allows you to reach that audience much more specifically. So what you will find is a greater match rate. So when it's within the DSP versus when it's in the SSP allows you to have like a tremendous increase in match rate.
Right.
It also creates a greater increase in transparency. But what's really important, it allows the buyer to do much better forecasting. So if you think about it, it's really creating a brand new technology within SSP that allows you to reach your audience much more precisely.
Are the buyers keeping up with all of this change? I mean, it's a lot of change in the marketplace in a relatively short space of time. You know, linear kind of stayed the same, linear television for like decades.
Yeah.
This stuff is developing super rapidly.
You know, it is, but the buyers are keeping up because the one thing, if you think about linear, the one thing about the digital ecosystem, and I've been in it for a while, so I've seen it evolve, is that as it continues to evolve, buyers always want the latest and greatest technology. Right. Because at the end of the day, you want to be in front of that user, but in front of the right user for the right number of times. So they are keeping pace. It does require an enormous amount of education. So when you think about the flow and the process, it requires an enormous amount of education.
So there is a legally binding requirement at the Cannes Festival to mention AI. So we're going to honor our obligation. How are you using AI to transform those buyer-seller relationships, to really change the nature of that transaction?
So the one thing I want to be very specific to specify is, if you think about ad tech, so AI has always been included in ad tech, right? Now, generative AI is going to take it to the next level. I see generative AI as a multiplier. In terms of what we can potentially do, if you think about reaching the audience, if you think about personalized ads, so I do think generative AI is going to take it to an entire new level for the industry. Our team at Ad Manager are actually working on tools that involves AI, so more to come on that. But I think it's going to continue to drive the innovation to the next level.
So I know on the content creation side of the industry, there's a view that AI is going to empower people to make more and more content. In the same way that, say, in the music space, we've seen an explosion of creativity. Yeah. Is that going to create for the buyers confusion? I mean, I think Cory Doctorow sometimes wrote about the shittification of the internet.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of video out there.
Yeah.
I assume that means that the role of curation has become even more important.
It is. It's becoming so much more important because, again, with the right data layer, you want to ensure, as always, you're getting in front of the right, and I want to say quality publisher, right? Because the type of publisher also determines the monetization. So this is where curation comes into play, and I think it's going to have an enormous amount of impact there. Now, from a publisher perspective, what we are seeing is efficiencies, right? I mean, even right now with Gemini, the amount of efficiencies you get, I edit my emails. Sometimes I get it to write my emails. It's making my life a lot easier. But the efficiency flow is probably the first thing you're going to see in terms of improvement on both the buy and the sell side. Now, in terms of AI creating content, yes, that is a much bigger conversation in terms of to what level.
Right.
But if you're like a traditional publisher, and I won't drop any publisher names, but just the editing factor right now has substantially changed for them, right? Whereas if you're putting out quality content that required editing, it's so much easier right now to get, an AI to actually edit that for you, specifically Gemini, obviously, to actually edit that for you. So it's evolved quite a bit.
So I know there's nothing more that I like on a Wednesday morning to have a good conversation about workflows. How are the workflows of the future, when you put this all together, if we were to fast forward to 2030, how different are workflows going to look? Do you think we're going to see really dramatic change? Or is it really more evolution than revolution?
I think it's going to be dramatic.
Right.
I think the workflow process is going to be very dramatic. If you think about the amount of time we spend doing what I would call more mundane work, as opposed to strategic work, getting an AI to automate that process for you is going to, and it's moving fast, as you know, right? Everyone knows the AI is moving tremendously fast. Being able to actually just automate a lot of that mundane work and really focus on much more strategic vision is going to be much more easier. So I see a dramatic shift within the next
more
2
automation?
Years. More automation, completely more automation within the next 2 years.
More iteration and refinement and testing and learning and experimentation?
Yeah. I actually think the testing and the learning is going to happen quick. Because right now, if you think about, even how we use AI, we're testing now, right? We're testing, we're iterating, we're teaching, and we're allowing the AI to get smarter and smarter to make all the jobs a lot easier. Now, the impact that it has on the global workforce is a different conversation altogether, but I do think within the next year or two, it's going to make our lives much more efficient.
So let's end with some practical advice. So you've painted a picture of a automated, AI-powered world of media selling, if you were a publisher trying to be competitive in this new world we're heading into, what would be your practical advice? What do publishers and media owners need to do?
So the first thing I would say, and I'll answer that from both a publisher and a buy-side perspective, having seen both. Quality is always going to matter, right? So while AI is great, quality and perspective is always going to matter. Signals, extremely important. So you want to make sure you have the right signals. That's always going to matter. From a brand perspective, if you think about 5 years from now, imagine having brand dollars and being able to reach your audience, irregardless of the location, instantaneously. So my vision, but I do think we're going to get to a place where a lot of the nuances go away and a lot of the efficiency in ensuring that a brand can reach that audience is going to be much more fine-tuned.
Final quick question. Now, there's going to be a lot more choice. I mean, is it going to be harder for brands to navigate those choices? Or will AI tools help?
It will be easier, right? So again, looking at it from both sides of the ecosystem, the publisher will have a lot more choice. Right? So you get to choose where and what type of advertising you want to run on your site.
Right. So format innovation
and format, transparency, controls, who's running, how the user experience is this going to increase my user experience or decrease my user experience? So the having that transparency and that control on the supply side is going to continue to happen. But also from the brand side, just really understanding the right audience or extension of that audience that's going to deliver the right KPI is going to continue to just excel.
Darline, thank you so much. I think you've set the scene for your power panel to follow, but that's been really interesting and helped to set the scene for that debate. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you.